When I speak to you today, I'm not talking as a distant expert on a screen. I'm talking to you as someone who has literally held beating hearts in my hands, who has seen families waiting outside operating rooms, and who has watched lives change because of small habits that were ignored for too long. One of the most underestimated moments for your heart is not during intense exercise, not during a big argument, but in the first 10 to 20 minutes after you wake up. And there is a particular way many people start their mornings that puts a sudden, unnecessary load on the heart. You might be doing it every day without realizing it. My goal in this talk is simple: to show you what is happening inside your chest every morning, to explain in clear, simple language why certain routines are risky, and to give you a heart-safe way to start your day so you can protect your future. If you are over 40, dealing with blood pressure issues, diabetes, fatty liver, kidney stress, or just constant fatigue, I want you to pay very close attention, because this is the time of day when your heart is especially vulnerable. When you open your eyes in the morning, you might think nothing much has happened yet. But inside your body, a switch has already been flipped. Your stress hormone cortisol starts to rise to wake you up. Your blood pressure, which drops during sleep, begins to climb again. Your heart rate increases slightly. Your blood vessels tighten a little. Your body is shifting from repair mode into action mode. If you're over 40, your arteries may already be stiffer than they were in your 20s. If you live with diabetes, prediabetes, high blood pressure, or chronic inflammation, your cardiovascular system is not starting from a relaxed, perfect baseline. It is starting from a place that already carries some tension. Now imagine that in this state, the very first things you do are sudden, intense, or shocking to your system. You jump out of bed, you rush, you grab strong coffee on an empty stomach. Maybe you take a very cold shower right away, and you start scrolling stressful messages. All of that stacks pressure on a system that is just waking up. This is why we see more heart attacks and strokes in the early morning hours. It is not random. It is physiology. And the way you structure your morning can either calm that physiology or push it over the edge. There are a few common beliefs I hear all the time from patients. "Doctor, I've been doing this for years, so it must be fine." "Doctor, it's just age. I feel a bit heavy in the morning, but that's normal." "Doctor, people say a cold shower and black coffee first thing are good for discipline and metabolism." These beliefs sound reasonable on the surface, but they don't match what we see in cardiology. Age by itself is not the problem. How your heart is treated over decades is the problem. That heaviness, that brief dizziness when you stand, that moment when you feel your heart pounding in your chest in the morning, these are not always harmless signs of getting older. Very often they are signals that your heart and blood vessels are being forced into sudden adjustments. And that popular idea that, if I can tolerate it, it must be good for me, is not how medicine works. You can tolerate high blood pressure for years until one day something happens. You can tolerate bad routines until your body finally says, "No more." The myth that your heart is just a passive passenger in your morning is dangerous. The medical reality is that your heart is doing a lot of work in a short time, and your routine can either support that or increase the strain. Let me explain what actually happens inside in very simple terms. Think of your body at night like a city at low power. The lights are dim, traffic is minimal, repair crews are working on the roads. Your heart slows down, your blood pressure drops, and your body uses the time to repair tissues, reset hormones, and clear waste. Then morning comes and the city has to wake up. Traffic increases, factories start running, lights turn on. Your cortisol level rises to give you energy. Your blood vessels tighten a bit to increase pressure and push blood where it needs to go. This is normal. But imagine if you suddenly open every highway at once, blast the power to maximum, and send a surge of traffic into a system that has not fully warmed up. That is what happens when you go from lying flat to standing quickly. When you immediately add strong coffee, when you shock your body with cold water or stress, your heart has to pump harder, your vessels have to constrict faster, and your pressure can jump rapidly. If your arteries are stiff, if there is plaque, if your blood is a little thicker from overnight dehydration, That sudden jump is like slamming the accelerator on a car that hasn't warmed up yet. You might get away with it for years, but every day it leaves a small mark on the system. Let me share a scenario that is not hypothetical in a medical sense. It reflects what I have seen again and again, even if I change the details to protect privacy. A man in his early 50s, still working full-time, believes he is okay, even though he has borderline blood pressure and slightly high blood sugar. His morning looks very familiar. Alarm goes off. He sits up immediately, swings his legs off the bed, and stands quickly. Sometimes he feels a little lightheaded, but it passes. He walks straight to the kitchen, pours a strong cup of coffee, and drinks it before even thinking about water. As he drinks, he checks his phone, sees emails, maybe some stressful news, maybe messages that trigger worry or frustration. His heart rate increases not only from the coffee, but from the emotional load. To wake himself up even more, he goes into a cold or very cool shower. The cold hits his skin, his blood vessels constrict, his nervous system fires, and again the heart has to react quickly. If you ask him, he will say, "Doctor, this is my normal. I feel fine. It's my routine." But when I see patients like this in clinic and we start to look closely, ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, stress tests, sometimes imaging, we often see patterns of strain that match exactly with these kinds of mornings. Now here's the part most people never hear directly. It's usually not one dramatic event that damages the heart. It's the gradual wear and tear of thousands of mornings where the heart is asked to sprint the moment it wakes up. Over time, the lining of the blood vessels can become inflamed. The pressure spikes can contribute to the progression of hypertension. In someone with diabetes or early kidney issues, the combination of higher morning blood sugar, cortisol, and pressure changes can be particularly harmful. That is why I want you to see your morning not as a throwaway part of your day, but as a critical window where you can either protect your heart or stress it. When patients begin to understand that their first 15 minutes shape the next 15 years, their motivation starts to change. And the good news is, you don't need complex, expensive interventions to fix this. You need awareness and consistency. So what are the actual habits that put that sudden load on your heart in the morning? Let's walk through them in a very clear, structured way. First, getting up too fast. When you go from lying down to standing in one sudden movement, gravity pulls blood toward your legs. Your heart and blood vessels have to react instantly to push it back up to your brain. If the reaction is too slow, you feel dizzy. If the reaction is too aggressive, your pressure jumps. Second, starting your day without water. After 6 to 8 hours of sleep, your body is mildly dehydrated. Your blood can become a little more concentrated and your heart has to work harder to push it through narrow vessels. Third, hitting your system with strong coffee immediately. Coffee by itself is not evil, but when you add caffeine on top of rising cortisol and dehydration, it becomes another demand on your heart and nervous system, especially in people with arrhythmias or sensitive blood pressure. Fourth, acute temperature shock from a very cold shower, or in some cases, a very hot one. The sudden temperature change activates your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight system, which constricts vessels and accelerates heart rate. Fifth, mental and emotional shocks like opening messages, news, or financial alerts as the very first activity. Your mind reacts, your muscles tense, your adrenaline increases, again asking the heart to adjust rapidly. There are more subtle habits as well. Holding your breath while stretching or bending can change the pressure in your chest and affect how the heart fills and pumps. Eating a heavy, salty breakfast first thing in the morning adds volume and pressure to a system that may already be under strain. Rushing around the house, going up and down stairs quickly, or doing sudden intense movements without warming up can cause your heart to jump from resting mode to near exercise mode without a transition. And perhaps one of the most dangerous habits of all is ignoring early signals, that slight chest discomfort, that unusual pounding heartbeat, that short-lived but recurrent dizziness. When people tell me, "Doctor, it only lasts a few seconds," I always answer, "Yes, but it is your body's way of speaking to you. We must listen." The pattern is what matters. One morning might be nothing. Hundreds of similar mornings tell a different story. Now, I don't want you to feel afraid of your own routine. Fear is not the goal. Awareness and control are the goal. So let me guide you into what a heart-friendly morning looks like, based on what we know from physiology and what I've seen help many patients. When your alarm rings, or when you wake naturally, give yourself a brief pause. Instead of sitting up immediately, take a few slow breaths. Then move to a sitting position and stay there for a short moment, allowing your blood pressure to adapt. This simple step alone reduces the risk of those sudden swings. Before standing, you can gently move your feet and ankles to encourage blood flow from the legs. Once you stand, move calmly rather than rushing. Make your first destination a glass of water, not the coffee machine. Drinking water early helps dilute the blood, supports circulation, and gives your heart an easier job. Take a minute to breathe slowly while you drink. In those first minutes, try to avoid emotional triggers. Your phone can wait. The world will still be there after your heart has settled. You might be wondering, where does coffee fit? Coffee is not forbidden for everyone, but I recommend delaying it by at least 30 to 60 minutes after waking, especially if you're over 40 or have known cardiovascular risks. Give your natural cortisol wave time to do its job first. When you bring in coffee later, it becomes a support for alertness rather than a shock to a still waking system. If you like a cool or cold shower, consider making the transition gradual. Start with lukewarm water, let your body adjust, and then lower the temperature. Or move your cold exposure to later in the day when your cardiovascular system is fully warmed up. If you have conditions like uncontrolled hypertension, arrhythmias, or severe coronary disease, this is something you should discuss with your doctor rather than experimenting alone. The key principle I want you to remember is this: your heart likes smooth transitions, not sudden shocks. Nutrition plays a huge role in how your heart experiences the morning. When the first thing you eat is a high-sugar pastry, a sweet cereal, or a heavily processed food, your blood sugar spikes quickly. High blood sugar leads to insulin spikes, which are linked to inflammation and long-term vessel damage. If your breakfast is also very salty, fast food, processed meats, certain packaged snacks, you are adding more volume and pressure to your circulation. This is especially hard on people with high blood pressure, heart failure, or underlying kidney disease. What I suggest instead is thinking of your breakfast as fuel for your blood vessels, not just for your taste buds. Foods rich in potassium, such as certain fruits and vegetables, help balance blood pressure. Healthy fats from nuts, seeds, or a small amount of high-quality oil support cell membranes and energy. Protein helps stabilize blood sugar. Even something as simple as a small portion of fruit, a handful of nuts, and a source of protein can make your heart's morning much easier. If you enjoy tea, consider starting with a gentle herbal tea rather than a very strong stimulant. Step by step, you are creating a softer landing for your cardiovascular system. Now I want you to step back and look at the bigger picture with me. Why does all of this matter so much? Because your heart is not just a pump. It is the organ that allows you to show up for the people you love, to walk, to work, to travel, to enjoy your life. Every beat is a gift, and we often don't appreciate it until something forces us to. If you are in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or beyond, you may already have seen friends or relatives suffer sudden cardiac events. You may know someone who seemed fine and then had a heart attack one morning. I am not sharing this to frighten you, but to remind you that prevention is far more powerful than emergency treatment. The small changes you make in your morning routine can reduce your risk in real, measurable ways. When you choose to get up slowly instead of jumping, when you reach for water instead of only coffee, when you protect your mind from immediate stress instead of diving straight into your phone, you are telling your heart, I am on your side. That mindset shift is incredibly important. If you have lived for years with the belief that nothing you do in the morning really matters, I'm inviting you today to update that belief. Your morning is like the first chapter of your day's story. When that first chapter is calm, intentional, and supportive to your heart, the rest of the story flows smoothly. When it's rushed, stressed, and harsh, your body has to fight to catch up. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. Even if you change just one habit at a time, you are moving in the right direction. Maybe this week you focus on getting up slowly. Next week you add hydration. Then you work on delaying coffee and limiting early phone use. Over months, these become your new normal. I've seen patients transform their blood pressure patterns, reduce their palpitations, and feel more stable simply by respecting this first window of the day. As a cardiac surgeon, I would much rather see you in a lecture hall or through a screen like this, learning how to prevent problems, than meet you for the first time in an operating room when something has already gone wrong. That is why I am direct with you, but also hopeful. Your body is remarkably capable of healing and adapting when you give it the right conditions. Your heart does not need perfection. It needs consistency and kindness. So as you wake up tomorrow, I want you to remember this conversation. Remember that your heart is waking up too. Give it a moment. Give it water. Give it gentle movement in a calm mind. Over time, these small decisions add up to fewer emergencies, more strength, and a longer, more active life. If what I've shared with you today has helped you see your mornings differently, I'm glad. I want you to feel informed, not scared, empowered, not helpless. You and I are on the same side. I am here to help you protect the only heart you will ever have. Let's take care of our health together.